This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Check the link in the description to get 3 months free. The OnePlus Nord sets the standard for what you should expect out of a mid-range phone in 2020. In that respect, it's kind of Android's answer to the iPhone SE. The Nord is a lot better for the price than it has any right to be. Priced at €399, it not only brings the heat to more expensive flagships, but also sets a high bar for upcoming mid-rangers like the Google Pixel 4a. I'm Alex from Android Central, and this is our review of the OnePlus Nord. Quite possibly the smartest money you can spend on a smartphone right now. Subscribe so you don't miss future reviews coming in the next month, and we'll jump right in. The way the Nord faithfully recreates that premium phone feel starts with the design. It's altogether flatter and a bit more squared off than OnePlus's recent design language, but still very comfortable. I actually prefer the feel of the Nord to the OnePlus 8, it's less slippery and the slightly chunkier sidewalls make it easier to hold onto. I've been using the OnePlus Nord in marble blue, which is definitely my favourite of the two colours available at launch. It's more saturated than the blue-green 8 Pro with just a hint of pearlescence at the right angle. While the back is made of Gorilla Glass, the outer frame is plastic, one of the few noticeable compromises the Nord makes to hit its price point, though it does have a pretty convincing metal effect to it. There's very little difference in the hand feel compared to a metal-framed phone, though it may end up scratching a little bit more easily. The buttons and alert slider, by the way, are in fact metal and definitely feel like it. Other compromises? There's no IP rating here, though the SIM tray does have rubber gaskets around it. OnePlus says it's designed to survive 30 centimeters of water for 30 seconds, so you're not going to want to go scuba diving with it, but it should survive everyday water-related mishaps. The 6.44-inch screen diagonal makes this a mid-sized handset, not as gigantic as the 8 Pro, but definitely not a small phone either. It's a nice happy medium. And that display is where the OnePlus Nord really starts punching above its weight. A Full HD Plus resolution fluid AMOLED panel with minimal bezels and a 90Hz refresh rate. When fast refresh rates aren't even guaranteed at the high end, 90Hz in the Nord is a big deal. It makes everything you do with the phone seem faster and more responsive. And OnePlus hasn't skimped in other areas of the display. There's ample brightness for daylight visibility, and colours are vibrant and punchy. In-screen fingerprint is provided too, which is fast and accurate, another thing that's far from guaranteed even in high-end Android phones. There's optional face unlock too, handled through one of the duo of selfie cameras up top, which we'll touch on a little bit later. The internals provide ample power to back up that fast screen. A Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G might not dominate the benchmarks like an 865 does, but in everyday use, outside perhaps of very demanding games, there's basically no difference between the performance of the Nord and the $1,000 Android flagship, at least none that I was able to notice. Depending on which model you pick up and where you're buying, you'll get between 6 and 12 gigs of RAM and between 64 and 256 gigs of storage. I've been testing the 12 plus 256 version, but based on the European pricing, most people should probably go for the 8 plus 128, since the price jump to the top end model is pretty steep. The Nord's slick performance isn't just down to its software, it's also a testament to the optimization and maturity of OnePlus's OxygenOS software. The Nord runs OxygenOS 10.5 out of the box based on Android 10, and it's promised the same level of software support as all other OnePlus phones, 2 years of platform updates and a further year of security patches after that. Practically, there's very little meaningful difference between the software of the Nord and the software of the OnePlus 8 series. The Nord gets some slick new live wallpapers showing frozen tundras and other rocky formations, which is nice, and the Google Dialer and Messages app are now the default for calls and texts, which seems like a natural next step for OxygenOS after it brought the Google feed to its home screen. So these two Google apps look a little different to OnePlus's versions and bring new features like automatic caller ID and spam filtering. Besides that, OxygenOS is a known quantity and still one of my favourite flavours of Android. From the ambient display to the Zen mode, everything feels well thought out and intelligently constructed. OxygenOS also includes the same optimised charging features we first saw in the OnePlus 8 series to help maintain the 4150 mAh battery over time. That battery supports OnePlus's Warp Charge 30T technology for fast top-ups when needed, though there's no wireless charging included, not a huge surprise there considering the price. When it comes to battery life, the Nord is a solid performer. If you're a heavy user, you're probably not looking at multiple days, but I was easily able to squeeze a busy 16-hour day out of the battery with 5.5 hours of screen on time. That was mainly indoors on Wi-Fi with some stints outside on LTE. On lighter days when I wasn't using the camera so much or juggling a bunch of Google Meet calls, I was able to easily get through a full day with around 50% remaining. That's roughly comparable to what I got out of the vanilla OnePlus 8 when I tested that phone, so nothing to worry about at all in terms of longevity. Before we continue, I want to talk about this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is a great way to keep your internet activity private and sidestep content restrictions, so your data isn't exposed to your ISP or whoever happens to be running that sketchy looking public Wi-Fi you might be connected to. With ExpressVPN, you get access to over 3,000 servers worldwide, making it easy to watch media or visit sites that might be blocked in your own country. For me, that means I can quickly virtually teleport to America and sidestep annoying video rights restrictions here in the UK. ExpressVPN keeps your IP address hidden without slowing down your connection, has no bandwidth limits, and 24/7 customer support. You can get it for Windows, Android, iOS, Mac, Linux, and even routers. You can get 3 months of ExpressVPN for free when you sign up for an annual plan, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied. Links are in the description, and thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. So far then, everything we've talked about has seen the Nord keep pace with much more expensive competitors, but if there's one area of cheaper phones that often falls down, it is the cameras. Now, OnePlus has stirred up a lot of hype about the main sensor of the Nord, a Sony IMX586 with optical stabilization and an f1.75 lens that spits out 12 megapixel images. That's basically the same camera from the OnePlus 8, so it's really a known quantity at this point, and performs pretty much identically to that phone. Dynamic range is impressive and colours are accurate, if ever so slightly less saturated than the OnePlus 8 Pro. Native resolution of 48 megapixels also gives you some leeway for digital zoom, which is good considering the lack of any dedicated telephoto option. And the fairly large sensor size itself also gives you some nice natural bokeh in certain situations. OnePlus's Nightscape mode also works wonders for darker scenes on the main sensor. The night shots you might have seen from the OnePlus 7 Pro last year are basically the same as what you'll get out of the Nord this year. The 8-megapixel ultrawide also works with Nightscape, but with less impressive results. In fact, the ultrawide in general is fairly weak and shows the limitations of what you can achieve in a phone that is so aggressively priced. Ultrawide photos aren't horrible, but there's little in the way of fine detail, and even with Nightscape, low-light captures are a bit uninspiring. Finally, the 2-megapixel macro camera. Well, it exists, it's fun to play with but not particularly useful, colours are murky, and outside of the postage stamp resolution, you really won't get passable shots outside of well-lit areas. Moving around the front, the Nord mixes things up with both a standard and ultra-wide selfie camera. I've been a big fan of this sort of feature going back to the Pixel 3, and although the Nord's ultra-wide shooter isn't quite as wide as the Pixel's, I've been pretty happy with the quality that it's produced. The OnePlus Nord is an absolutely delightful little phone that absolutely nails what most people will want out of an affordable mid-range device. It steals all the right features from the high-end flagships and combines them into a package that's better than it has any right to be for $399. The only place you really notice you're using a mid-range phone is that camera, and even then it's only when you start using the secondary lenses, the ultra-wide and the macro, that the quality noticeably dips. That main camera more than holds its own, and is a big important part of what makes the Nord worth the money. So if you're buying a mid-priced phone this year, I think the Nord seriously just upended that entire market, especially in the West. The phone shares a lot of its core features with the OnePlus 8, and so you ultimately get a device that's 90% as good as that for 60% of the price. It's a real shame the Nord isn't coming to the US, because it could well be the strongest sub-$500 phone of 2020. That's it for now. Share your thoughts down in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for Note 20, Pixel 4a, and much more coming in the weeks ahead. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.